everyone. It's a pleasant Saturday and I'm out on my patio. It's my favorite place to be. And I want to do a fast video today about how the type 4 or tapping into your 4-ness for all numbers can really benefit you and help boost your self-confidence and recognize who you are as a person. I'm wearing my wrap. I ordered this wrap. I love this wrap because I noticed I sit out here a lot. Unless it's too cold, you'll see those videos where I'm inside and I'm by my books. Either it's too dark or it's too cold. So rather than bring out my blanket, I said I'm going to buy a wrap. So I don't mean to look like a fortune teller, but I like my wrap. Anyway, sorry. But going back to my point. So basically the 4 is about your selfhood, developing your selfhood, and the importance of individuality. And when 4s are confident and integrated, they don't feel the need to compare themselves to others because they know their sense of self. Okay, they don't feel that lack because they know that they can do something that no one else can do. So what prompted me to do this video was actually another Enneagram channel did a video. Her name's Hillary McCaskey did a video about the type 9 and what it means, the 9's sloth. And she speaks a little bit in that video. I'm going to link to it about how she felt some reluctance and some trepidation when it came to starting a YouTube channel because she was comparing herself to others and saying, oh, others could do it better. And then she came to the realization, you know, this is what her passion was, and that no one can do it like she can. And that's true. I mean, like, I follow a number of Enneagram videos, no pun, or maybe a pun, yes. But it is true. I mean, her videos are totally different than I see from someone else. So what you bring to it, you might not even realize that you bring a certain flavor or spice or uniqueness, you know, that is totally you, that no one else can do. So I was really, after seeing her video, after watching it, that's what sort of gave me the impetus to talk about this. Now I want to just give an example. So me being like, I'm a writer and I'm an artist, and so type 4, and you know, there's a lot of very strong connection between the 4 and the 9 because they're both identity types. As I've said, you know, 9s tend to merge to try to find who they are, and 4s will withdraw. But I'm a social 4, so I'm the kind of unusual 4, not that I'm the counter type 4, that's self-preservation, but I'm a social 4 in that I tend to be more talkative than other 4s. I do tend to seek people out. I do tend to enjoy speaking to an audience or a group, such as I have no problem starting a YouTube channel. I thought that maybe I'd get a lot more nasty comments, and maybe they're still, you know, here to come. That's fine, I'll just, whatever. But I have no problem being a writer. I've always longed to talk to a group, to people. And so I'm not one of those 4s who, when you ask me a question, you get one-word answers. Like, I know some 4s who are like that, you know, they're just yes, no, they don't talk much, and you're just like, okay, this is exciting. Meanwhile, inside their heads, there's all this stuff going on. And I'll admit, even for me, like, as another 4, as a 4 myself, I'll be like, I mean, come on, you got more to say, right? You know. Anyway, stop being like a 5, you know? So, I want to just give an example. I'm drinking my favorite go-to. It's a Prosecco. Lower in alcohol, but bubbly. It's my weekend drink. And my cat, Dolce, is just now climbing the fence. See? This is what happens when I do these videos in real time. I don't edit them like some other channels do. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give you who I am in this duration of time. And that's, for me, that's just what I choose to do. And I guess that's part of what makes me me. But anyway, let me give you my example. So I talk with a lot of like younger writers or people who long to, be artists or are artists. And one of the things young people tend to do before they have found their identity or they found their voice or their vision or whatever, they tend to, they not only compare themselves to other artists, they'll compare artists to other, each other, and they'll emulate qualities in this artist. So I told a friend of mine who's a writer who had struggled a lot with finding his voice, largely because, he's a type 8, so I think one of his issues is, and I noticed this between both the 5 and the 8, is tapping into that vulnerability is very important when you are trying to pursue, expressing yourself as an artist. You have to have that emotion there in some way, and learning how to control and to harness that emotion with that 5 wing, or that tapping into that 5, that intellect, that's extremely important. So I gave the comparison of, you think of singers, popular singers from the 1950s. You think of Elvis Presley and then Johnny Cash. And I'm going to use this as an example because I think everyone knows who these people are. Now, you could look at Elvis and say, Elvis is certainly the king of rock and roll. He was, we're talking when he was young, he was rather good looking. He had great presentation. He was a great dancer. He was a great performer. He did have a really good singing voice that I think some people don't recognize, because I've noticed when other people kind of cover his songs, I don't know, there's something missing. But he sang his songs quite well. So better looking, dancer, singer, performer. I would say he had all that really well. Whether or not you like Elvis's music or whatever, you have to at least acknowledge that he had these great skills. And there's a reason why, he is remembered the way he is. Perhaps he is a little overrated. That's to be discussed, but that's not what I'm discussing here. Then you have another singer who was very popular in the 50s who came about, and that is Johnny Cash. Okay, Johnny Cash was primarily known as a country singer, but Johnny Cash, if you compare them side by side, now let's look at them. Well, who's better looking? Well, Elvis is better looking than Johnny Cash. Who is a better dancer? Elvis. Who overall had a better singing voice? Elvis. So, who's the better, if I had to pull away and say, who's the better performer? Elvis or Cash? Well, that's a toss-up. Because, here's why. Even though Elvis was, I could say objectively, better in those qualities than Johnny Cash, he was better looking, he was a better performer in terms of dancing, not necessarily performing, but music-wise, but dancing, or moving his hips, sex appeal. And his voice, objectively, was better. But, what is it about Johnny Cash? Okay, Johnny Cash was the man in black. Johnny Cash was not the pretty boy. The pretty boy would not have worked for his image. If Elvis tried to sing Johnny Cash's songs, his voice would not work. It would sound inauthentic. It would sound fake. Johnny Cash's voice was perfect for Johnny Cash's music. His performance was not based in sex appeal, but rather rebellion. He had, I don't know what kind of Enneagram number he was. There's something about him. I see some 4-ness, but I also see kind of a commiseration, how he seemed to empathize a lot with prisoners, the Folsom Prison Blues. Elvis singing that would not work with Elvis's sort of like, ooh, sexy, teeny bopper kind of image. That wasn't Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash was dark. So you go back now, you can look at those qualities and say, yeah, Elvis might have achieved in those things objectively if you pull away from the music, but you have to look at Johnny within the context. Johnny Cash was perfect as Johnny Cash. His voice was perfect for his songs. There's a moody, there's a bluesy kind of sadness, a pissed off quality that he has in his voice that works perfectly for his voice, for his songs. Not to repeat myself, but the point is, no one could do Johnny Cash like Johnny Cash, okay? Elvis could never do Johnny Cash. So the point is to not compare yourself on individual qualities, like, well, that person is better at this than I am. But what are you good at that maybe you don't have that quality, but you can spin it in such a way that makes it work for you? So, it's sort of like you say, someone who's a great rock singer isn't necessarily going to be a great country singer. Or you find, the whole idea of finding singers who are songs that are good for those singers, like they say with Karen Carpenter is a good example. She has a phenomenal voice. But one of the things I will say, and I don't want to make this video about the Carpenters, but her brother, I always say that her brother, Richard, his best quality was his sister's voice, that his greatest talent was understanding his sister's voice, Karen's voice. He understood it better than she did, because when Karen Carpenter released a solo album, that solo album wasn't very good because the songs didn't suit her voice. So if you listen to it, you don't really hear how great a singer she was in those songs, because it doesn't offer the range and the depth. So that's what I'm saying, is the importance of learning your individual strengths and how to apply them within a context that suits you. So, that's what I'm saying, the difference between an Elvis or a Johnny Cash. Or it's sort of like comparing painters. Do you compare the two Dutch guys, call them the two Dutch dudes, Vermeer, who, girl with the pearl earring, I mean, literally it's like his paintings, the people could come walking off the screen, or they could walk off the canvas, and they're so lifelike, versus Van Gogh. I mean, you would never expect Van Gogh to paint like Vermeer, or Vermeer to paint like Van Gogh. It's ridiculous. And that's where I think a lot of the Impressionists during the period where Impressionists were kept out of museums was due to, they favored, the critics favored the salon artists, was because they were applying sort of these old, cloudy, rigid standards to a rather new art form that they didn't understand. So that's when you assess somebody like Johnny Cash. You can't apply the same kind of standards that you would for someone like Elvis. It just doesn't work. Now, I will say that I have noticed, like, during this pandemic, my subtypes, just to point this out, it's interesting because I've noticed my subtypes being more present, like me indulging more in my self-preservation as a sort of comfort because of the stress I've been undergoing or been through. I've noticed, like, they say that in stress, even your wing will go to its number. So being a 4-wing 5, I noticed my 5 went to 7. I was so scattered yesterday at work. There were like at least 3 or 4 instances where I completely forgot things. Like I started something and then I forgot, I had somebody come by and say, didn't you forget to start that? And I said, I completely forgot. And then got distracted by something else. I heated up my food in the microwave for lunch or whatever. I completely forgot about it. 30 minutes later, someone's like, didn't you leave it? Literally so scattered, like a type 7. And I don't know, man. But let's see, where am I going? Okay, so I just want to make a few more points. Well, so like that's where my comparison, the Elvis and Johnny Cash comparison. What annoyed me was I started doing some comparing myself, where I did a recent post about where I read a Sylvia Plath poem and I read one of mine, and it's a couple posts ago, a couple videos ago, and I talk about how, obviously she was clearly an influence on me, but, as she is on many writers, and she's a great poet. And I made that video before I realized they recently, like this past week, released yet another book about her, and it's 1,200 pages about this woman who, yes, she's a great poet, but only lived to 30 because she stuck her head in the oven. And I sat there and I go, why does she get so many books written about her? And while it's good to write about someone of quality, she's not the only one of quality. So I admit I felt a little resentment there because I skimmed through the book on Amazon, and it was kind of putting her on this intellectual pedestal, like, she could just draw a comparison, and I'm like, well, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And so that's where I felt myself kind of feeling a little bit rivalrous, not because I feel myself lacking in terms of the writing, but just the attention, obviously. How much of that, and I'll probably do another video on this, but how much of that is really due to cult of personality. It's like, stick your head in the oven and gash yourself, and then marry an asshole who then leaves you for another woman who also kills herself, and then you have a kid with that guy, and he kills himself. I mean, it's literally like the fucking family of suicide. And this is why it's, being written. And yeah, she was a great poet. It also puts her prose like it was some masterwork, the Bell Jar, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to do a video on that, man. If you think that, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, anyway, so that sort of was a combination of things, was the impetus for this, but that to the type 4 is in all of us, like all 9 types are part of us, so really the importance of tapping into your type 4 tap ability is what can put you into a context that suits you. So not comparing yourself individually on this or that or this or that, but how do you work as a whole? How do you stand out? What makes you different? And when we look at many different writers or artists, it is important to see them as individuals. And yes, we compare, but we tend to compare those who are really lacking in those talents versus others who can achieve on their own merit. We often compare differences. What is it? Differences in degree, but not in kind. We can compare a Picasso or a Dali, but we're not going to compare, Dali and Thomas Kinkade, because that would be ridiculous. Because Thomas Kinkade does those like cheesy, hallmarky, barfy paintings, and Dali's a great painter. But anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there. Just had these thoughts. I'm gonna probably have to follow up on what that book I read, and I didn't read it, but I just saw it, that it irritated me because it struck the envy chord in me a little bit, because I'm just like, can't you write about somebody new? Not new. I mean, can't you give Hart Crane some more attention? Or there's a lot of other great writers that have lived that didn't. Anyway, it's sort of like when they come out with a new Abe Lincoln bio. It's like, really? Another one? I mean, what more is there to say? Anyway, I haven't read the book. I'm just venting, but I don't want to make it too long. Oh, 18 minutes. Okay, that's all I got to say for right now. I'll be in touch. Thanks for listening.